Ladies and gentlemen, I will have to slide quickly to our next session. I believe Michito Tsuruoka is online as our guest of honor, author of this book. Hello, Michito, konbanwa.
Great to see you.
So, my name is Alica Kizeková, and I'm going to guide you through this little book launch of ours. The book is called The Indo-Pacific in the Post-Pandemic World, Security Issues and Strategic... it's called The Indo-Pacific in the Post-Trump Era, Expectations and Challenges. And the actual book is online on our website. So if you go to our website, you can download the book for free. And it's a collaboration that we started a few months ago. We had a webinar with some partners and decided to write all the remarks under analysis and then deliver in one compact publication. I'll give a little overview of this book, and then I'll let Michito Tsuruoka to present some remarks from his chapter and possibly maybe some observations that he might have observed since we finalized this book, because it does not include references to AUKUS, obviously, or some of the latest developments. When we reflected, obviously, in our works on the topic, we were looking about the incoming Joe Biden's administration and also seeing how he inherited America First kind of approach to in foreign policy to many spheres. And he promised to return the US to multilateralism, defend democracy, climate change, nuclear non-proliferation, or global health. So that was taken from the White House statement, and we wanted to see how much and what speed, obviously, this will come to light. And we took the position that the actual assessments of Indo-Pacific predated the administration's arrival, but we also were aware that they predated Trump's administration in some regards. But for us, the key point was how the like-minded countries can collaborate and whether there could be any issues. And just by looking at the book's contents, some of our writers tackled specifically the relationship between US, Japan, and European countries, such as Hiroyuki Akita, who is at the Nikkei. He concluded that these countries have divergent priorities, obviously, but different strategies in some ways, different approaches, but it doesn't mean that that's necessarily a bad issue, that they can use this and find some complementarities, that they don't have to lose their uniqueness. One of the writers was writing from Australia's perspective, and we talked about that today, but Rosita Delios from Queensland, her point of view was that we are misunderstanding the Chinese strategic culture in many ways, and we should she encouraged better understanding of Chinese strategic culture and other actors in the long term to find inclusive views on the landscape. Jan Hornát, who's not here, but he's in Prague at Charles University, was exploring the role of the Quad and the continuity and transformation of the US strategic approach. He believed that the actual tension between the US and China will somewhat continue. It will play a crucial role in the US considerations when approaching the region. Michal Kolmáš, I believe he's now in the US, but he's also a Prague-based scholar. He dealt with the re-evaluation of Japan's role in the post-alliance security environment in Asia. And he explored the attention to strengthening minilateral security and multilateral economic frameworks. François Nicolas, who is based at IFRI Paris, she was specifically focusing on the economics and on improving European Union's linkages in the negotiations with Southeast Asian nations. And one of her, obviously, observations was how EU really needs to, in some way, step up and re-energize these stalled negotiations. Laura Anka Parepa, who is based at the University of Tsuda in Japan, was dealing further with this topic and agreed that the US, Japan, and European Union share some geo-economic challenges from China, but she felt they have not yet tapped into the full potential and suggested trilateral platform for comprehensive policy coordination, which could kind of help them to overcome these difficulties. Robert Sutter, who was writing from the US perspective and is an expert on China-US relations, was pointing out that there was particularly negative view of China in the US government, and it was also reflected among public. So he anticipated further struggle in his foresight and believed that these tensions will dominate the Indo-Pacific Europe and majority of developing world. And finally, Michito Tsuruoka, who will speak for himself, I invite you to deliver your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be talking to you this morning or this afternoon. Of course, I would have liked to visit the beautiful city Prague, but perhaps next time. So I'm here not to represent the other authors, but let me highlight a couple of things which includes the development after the publication, after the submission of the articles, and including the EU's strategy on cooperation in the Indo-Pacific that has attracted a lot of attention, not only in Japan, but also in the region as well. And also the AUKUS is now a quite interesting framework, and at least the experts are really busy following what this new framework means. So let me first say a few words on the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy. So I personally very much welcome this. It's quite impressive document, and the most important, I think, from my perspective, the most important aspect is that this is about the EU going beyond China in its policy towards Asia or in the Pacific, because it used to be that EU's Asia engagement or Asia policy has been very much centered on China. Of course, for some good reasons, but at the same time, Asia or Indo-Pacific region is much, much broader than China. So the going beyond China is always a great thing, because it's in the EU's interest. And also it is about, the strategy is very much about going beyond trade and economy. So this is something that the EU has been trying to do for many years, I understand. So the raising political and security profile in the region is something that the EU has been trying to do. But this Indo-Pacific strategy, it's sort of another sort of milestone in such efforts by the EU. But still, some people in the region complain that the document is light on security issues, particularly military security issues. Yes, it's quite true, but my take is that it's just natural for the EU to focus on security, focus on economic and trade issues, because that's where the EU's comparative advantages lie. So it's just natural for the EU to take advantage of what it has. So it's quite impressive that the EU in recent years has been very active in developing and strengthening its economic tools or economic security tools. So the things in somewhere between economy and security. So economic trade, economic security, and tools like the investment screening, export control, and also the idea of controlling foreign subsidies. And so these things are quite new, and the pace of the EU's action in these regards, I think it's quite impressive. And economic security as an agenda is also something that the Japan is now very much focusing on. So just a couple of days ago, the new Japanese Prime Minister took power. So Mr. Kishida is now Prime Minister. So now, in that sense, my chapter has become a bit outdated because the title of my chapter was From Trump to Biden and From Abe to Suga, but now it's From Suga to Kishida. But anyway, I don't think there's going to be a huge substantial change in Japan's foreign policy under the new prime minister. And that is very much exemplified by the fact that the foreign minister and defense minister stay. So the Minister Motegi, Foreign Minister Motegi, and the Defense Minister Kishi, they remain in their respective posts. And what is interesting in this context, what is interesting about the new Japanese government is that now we have a minister in charge of economic security. So that for the first time, and this shows that how Japan and how Tokyo is eager to expand its activities in economic security issues. And I believe that there are various potential areas for cooperation between the EU and Japan regarding economic security issues, or somewhere between economy and security. And also the another quite interesting a series of developments that have been taking place in the region when it comes to the Europe's engagement in the Indo-Pacific region is that the various countries, particularly the UK and France, have been sending naval ships to the region. So and France sent amphibious assault vessel, Tonnerre, that was that visited Japan, and we had for the first time ever did a ground joint training, actually amphibious joint training not only between Japanese and French, but also involving Americans as well. So that was a quite interesting development. And also the British aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth is literally in the region now, and in the region for some time already, and this is quite something, because it's a UK-US joint carrier strike group. So onboard the aircraft carrier, there are 18 fifth generation stealth fighters, F-35B, both from the US Marine and the UK. So there have been a series of joint training and exercises in the region, including those involving Japan. So looking at these development, what I believe is that we need to ensure synergies between what the European Union can do in the region and what the European Union does in the region, and what individual countries of Europe do in the region. So raising the EU security and defense profile in the region is of course a good thing, but at the same time, it is nation states which have navies, armies, and air forces. So it's just obvious that we need to ensure synergies between EU efforts and individual countries' efforts. And in that sense, what is interesting and what makes things complicated is how to deal with how to locate the UK in this picture. Sadly, it's no longer in the EU, but still the UK is one of the very few European countries which have a sort of a permanent presence and permanent interest in the region. So it's not just in Japan's or in the region's interest, but also in the EU's own interest to keep the UK involved in any EU-Asia or EU-Indo-Pacific conversation. So this is a sort of my humble message. And finally, just a few words on AUKUS and before that Afghanistan, because it is the withdrawal of the US from Afghanistan. Yes, of course, that was in tactical sense, disastrous. So the very disorderly withdrawal, that was perhaps could have been avoided, but the evacuation efforts. So I was very impressed by the Czech Republic's very active and quite a great evacuation effort. So of course, major countries do their way of evacuation, and of course the not major countries also do, and so I very much commend the Czech Republic's evacuation effort, because compared to that, Japanese evacuation effort didn't quite succeed. So I believe that there are lessons that the Japanese can learn from your way of doing evacuation, because of course they're comparing Japan and the US. That's the difference is too big. So I believe that the European countries are more comparable to what Japan could have done. So in that sense, I'm personally very much interested in the Czech Republic's the example and model of evacuation from Afghanistan. And finally on AUKUS, from a Japanese perspective, it's good. It's not. I would say it's not directly our business. It's very much a business of the three countries, the US, UK, and Australia. And it's not a coincidence that they are part of Five Eyes, or perhaps even a core group within the Five Eyes, sort of. So it's very much a very exclusive thing. So but still, Japan has good relations and good security and defense ties with all those three countries. So we are in a position to benefit from this new framework, or strengthen cooperation or strengthen engagement of those countries in the Indo-Pacific security issues. That's something we very much welcome. So the Australian decision was very much ignited by their heightened threat perceptions on China. So that's very much something we share. So I think I'll stop here, and if there are any questions and comments, I'll be happy to discuss further.
Thank you, Michito, so much. And I think that's good that you updated. And I still remember Prime Minister Kishida's visit in Prague. I was able to be at the negotiation when he was here in different capacity, obviously, but he has a connection to this part of the world. So many people here would be familiar with his persona. But that doesn't necessarily make your chapter redundant, because we always need some assessment before we can make new ones. Is there anyone in the audience who has any question for Michito? Doesn't have to be related to the chapter, but we have a Japanese representative here, and we talk about Indo-Pacific. I will give you the opportunity to ask a question. If not, I have a quick one, because we had a panel before this panel. Have you had a chance to watch it, or?
Sorry, no, I'm afraid I wasn't able.
There was a speaker from Australia, Malcolm Davies from ASPI, but he truly, I think, described that we have to expect a lot of tension and, I would say, hard power in a way in the region, that Australia is taking this more by storm, also allowing more US military presence in Australia and more engagements. Some of them were suggesting that Quad and AUKUS are sort of reinforcing each other and helping each other. Do you have any projections as to where you see the strategic security environment to go? Because obviously ASEAN is more anxious and would like to see more soft power, I would imagine, and ASEAN centrality, but now we have a different dynamics.
Thank you very much. Yes, the strategic competition between the US and China, it's just a reality. And the tensions are going to continue, sadly, but that's, I think, quite true. And so we face choices. But I believe that some people argue that Europe is doing a sort of balancing act between siding with Americans or siding with Chinese. I don't think that's really something that Europeans are facing. What you are thinking about is how you could balance between pursuing your own interest vis-a-vis China and maintaining strategic alignment with the US strategy. So this is something that the Japan faces as well. So the Japanese interest vis-a-vis China and those of the United States cannot be identical. We should not pretend that Japan and the US have identical interest vis-a-vis China, because that's simply not the case. So the alliance is about managing our differences. So it's just natural that we have somewhat different interests, because geography is very different. We are very close to China in terms of geography. So China is our neighbor. We cannot move. So we have to face the reality. So that's why the decoupling is something that we don't want to even talk about. So the situations are different. And that is why we need multifaceted an approach, not just to China, but also the alliance with the United States is also multifaceted. So it's not just about military security, it's also about trade and economy as well. So in that sense, there are, I think including myself, there are concerns in Japan or in the region about the lack of clarity of American position vis-a-vis trade and economic frameworks in the region. So the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, so recently, not only Beijing, but also Taiwan applied for that. And it's a quite new, interesting development. So the Trump administration withdrew from original TPP, and that was very much a shock, not only for Japan, but also for other like-minded countries in the region, like Australia. But the Biden administration, yes, we hope they could come up with a new sort of proposals, but we are still waiting what comes from the Biden administration about trade and economic, the initiatives in the trade and economic domains in the region. So that concerns us a lot, but it seems that the Biden administration's sort of first priority has been to consolidate Quad. So the Quad used to be very security-oriented framework. So the original name was a Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. So by definition or by name, it was about security. But if you look at the joint statement from the first ever in-person Quad summit meeting in DC, so you find a lot of sentences on COVID vaccines or other technology issues or economic security type of agendas are very much dominant in the Quad. So yes, it's quite interesting evolution of the Quad. But what this means is that we need various kinds of frameworks according to the topics we want to deal with. So in that sense, the Quad and AUKUS are quite complementary. So it's not mutually exclusive. So the Quad, AUKUS is now very much focusing on nuclear submarines with Australians. But as far as the three countries' announcement is concerned, and judging from that, the AUKUS is interested in expanding its areas of cooperation into the various security and defense related technologies like cyber or AI, artificial intelligence, or quantum technologies. So if AUKUS really moves to the sort of a next phase of cooperation or going beyond the submarine thing, then there will be perhaps more interesting opportunities for other countries to get involved. But as far as AUKUS is only about nuclear submarines, then it's almost impossible for other countries to get involved. But perhaps in the future, the Quad might enlarge, and AUKUS could also enlarge its areas of cooperation, and then we will find a new sort of the frameworks in the region.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor Michito Tsuruoka, connected from Keio University. We appreciate your input, and you're welcome to come back to Prague physically in the future. And for everyone, you can download the book from our website and read more assessments.